The massive throne room stretched out like a golden ocean under purple lights. Queen Zixara sat on her crystal throne, watching the new prisoners being brought before her. Her 6 arms moved gracefully as she examined each alien creature that her ships had captured from across the galaxy. Today's collection was smaller than usual. 3 floating jellyfish-like beings from the water world of Aquos, 2 rock creatures from the mountain planet Petra, and 10 strange bipedal beings from a small blue world called Earth. The Queen's 4 eyes scanned each prisoner with interest. She had been collecting the best examples of alien life for over 200 years. Her palace was home to creatures with amazing powers. Some could read minds, others could walk through walls. A few could control fire with their thoughts. But these humans looked ordinary. They had no scales, no extra arms, no glowing parts. Their skin was soft and pink or brown. They stood on 2 legs and had only 2 arms each. Most of them were shaking with fear or crying. Some shouted angry words in their strange language. "Your Majesty," said General Krextar, her war commander. His body was made of living metal that shifted and changed as he spoke. "These humans are weak. They have no special abilities. Their technology is very basic. They only learned to fly between planets a few decades ago." Queen Zixara's tail swished behind her throne. "Tell me more about them." "They live short lives, only about 80 years. They fight each other constantly. Their strongest weapons can barely destroy a city. They know almost nothing about the universe beyond their small solar system." Krextar's metal face showed disgust. "I recommend we use them as food for the war beasts." The Queen looked at the human prisoners again. Most of them were indeed crying or begging. Their strange sounds filled the air. But one human caught her attention. He stood in the middle of the group, perfectly still. This human was older than the others. His hair was black with some gray streaks. His skin was a light brown color. He wore simple gray clothes that looked like work clothing. Unlike the others, he was not afraid. His dark eyes moved around the throne room, studying everything he saw. The Queen stood up from her throne. Her height of 12 feet made even the tallest human look small. She walked down the crystal steps, her multiple arms flowing like water. The other prisoners stepped back as she approached, but the calm human stayed where he was. "What is your name, strange creature?" she asked in the common galactic language. The human looked directly at her. "Marcus Chen," he said. His voice was steady and clear. "You are not afraid, Marcus Chen from Earth?" Marcus looked around the throne room again. His eyes stopped on various pieces of technology. The floating crystals that provided light, the walls that showed images from across the galaxy, the weapons carried by the guards. "Fear is not useful right now," Marcus said. "I would rather understand." General Krextar stepped forward. "Your Majesty, this one is clearly defective. Normal humans should be terrified." But Queen Zixara found herself interested. In all her years of collecting aliens, few had ever spoken to her this way. Most begged for their lives or tried to attack her guards. This human seemed to be studying her as much as she was studying him. "What do you understand, Marcus Chen? Your technology is advanced beyond anything my people have achieved. Your empire spans many worlds. You collect different species, probably for their unique abilities." Marcus paused. "You are trying to decide what to do with us." The Queen's advisor, a floating gas creature named Mordun, drifted closer. "Impressive reasoning for such a primitive species," he said, his voice like wind through caves. "But reasoning alone is not enough. What can humans offer that we cannot already do better?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Perhaps we see problems differently because we are weak. When you have great power, you might miss simple solutions." This answer surprised the Queen. Her other advisors laughed, but she silenced them with a gesture. "General Krextar," she said, "take the other humans to the holding cells. They will work in the crystal mines." "Yes, Your Majesty." "And this defective one?" Queen Zixara looked at Marcus again. He had not asked her to spare the others. He had not begged for mercy. He simply waited to hear his fate. Something about this human intrigued her. Perhaps it was his calmness. Perhaps it was the way he looked at everything like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Her instincts told her there was more to this creature than appeared on the surface. "This one will be my personal advisor," she announced. The entire throne room fell silent. General Krextar's metal body turned dark red, a sign of anger. Mordun's gaseous form swirled faster. Even the guards looked shocked. "Your Majesty," Krextar said carefully, "surely you cannot be serious. This creature has no useful abilities. It cannot fight. It cannot fly. It has no psychic powers. What advice could it possibly give you? That remains to be seen, the Queen replied. She turned to Marcus. Do you accept this position, human? Marcus nodded once. I do. What would you like me to do? First, you will learn our language properly. Second, you will study our technology and our empire. Third, you will attend my daily meetings and listen. When I ask for your opinion, you will give it honestly. I understand. May I make one request? Every alien in the room tensed. Prisoners did not make requests of the Queen. Speak, she said. I would like access to your technical archives. If I am to serve you well, I need to understand how your technology works. Morden's form turned bright orange with shock. Your Majesty, the technical archives contain our most advanced scientific knowledge. This primitive creature could not possibly understand such information. Then there is no harm in letting him try, the Queen said. She was curious to see what this human would do with access to knowledge far beyond his species' understanding. As the guards removed Marcus's chains, General Krextar stepped closer to the Queen. Your Majesty, I must protest this decision. This human will be useless at best, dangerous at worst. The other members of your court will question your judgment. Queen Zixara's 4 eyes fixed on her general. Are you questioning my judgment, Krextar? The metal being immediately bowed low. Never, Your Majesty. I live to serve. Good. Then prepare quarters for my new advisor, and ensure he has full access to the learning systems. As the throne room emptied, Queen Zixara remained on her throne, watching Marcus being led away by the guards. He walked calmly, still looking at everything around him with those thoughtful eyes. She had ruled for over 2 centuries. She had conquered dozens of worlds and commanded billions of beings. Her advisors all had incredible powers that made them valuable to her empire. So why had she chosen a powerless human from a primitive world? The Queen could not answer that question. But something told her that Marcus Chen was not as ordinary as he appeared. Time would tell if her instincts were correct, or if she had made a terrible mistake. For now, she was content to wait and watch. After all, she had lived long enough to know that the most interesting surprises often came in the most unexpected packages. The crystal lights dimmed as evening approached, and Queen Zixara finally left her throne, thinking about the strange human who had not been afraid to look her in the eyes. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus Chen became the Queen's advisor. Every morning, he attended the royal meetings in the smaller council chamber. Every afternoon, he studied in the technical archives. Every evening, he walked through the palace gardens, observing everything with quiet attention. The other advisors watched him with growing amusement and contempt. Look at the pet human, General Krextar whispered to Morden during one morning meeting. He sits there like a statue, contributing nothing of value. It was true that Marcus spoke very little during meetings. When Queen Zixara discussed military strategies, he listened. When she reviewed economic reports, he took notes on a simple tablet the guards had given him. When she met with ambassadors from other worlds, he observed their behavior with careful eyes. But when Marcus did speak, his questions were always thoughtful. Your Majesty, he had said during a discussion about food shortages on the mining worlds, have you considered rotating the workers instead of increasing their hours? Tired workers make more mistakes, which reduces overall production. The suggestion was so simple that the other advisors laughed. But when the Queen implemented the idea, production actually increased by 15%. Your Majesty, he had asked when they discussed problems with rebellions on newly conquered worlds, what do these planets want most? Sometimes giving people something small they really need costs less than fighting them. Again, the advisors mocked the naive human thinking. But the Queen tried his approach on 2 troubled worlds, offering them better medical supplies instead of sending more soldiers. The rebellion stopped within a month. These small successes only made the other advisors more angry with Marcus. They felt he was making them look bad with his simple ideas. Your Majesty, said Veltar, a psychic being who could read thoughts from 3 star systems away. This human's suggestions are the obvious thoughts of a primitive mind. Any child could have these ideas. Then why did none of you suggest them? The Queen asked. Veltar's tentacles writhed with embarrassment, but he said nothing. General Krextar decided to end this embarrassment once and for all. During a meeting about defending the Empire's borders, he stood up dramatically. Your Majesty, with respect, I think it is time to demonstrate why this human cannot truly serve you. His metal body began to glow with energy. "Allow me to show you real power." Krextar's form shifted and changed. His solid metal body became like liquid, flowing through the air. He passed through the council table as if it was not there. Then he became solid again, his hands now glowing with energy that could destroy a building. "This is what real ability looks like," he announced. "I can phase through any material. I can generate enough energy to level a city. I have led your armies to victory on 50 worlds." He gestured dismissively at Marcus. "What can this human do? He cannot even lift a proper weapon." Morden joined the display. The gas creature's form expanded, filling half the room. Mathematical equations appeared in the air around him, glowing with complex symbols. "I can calculate the movement of every star in this galaxy," Morden said, his voice now like thunder. "I can predict the weather on any world for the next 1,000 years. I can solve problems that would take your best computers centuries to understand." The equations swirled faster. This human understands nothing about true science. Other advisors began showing off their abilities too. Beltar demonstrated his telepathy by reading the thoughts of guards 3 floors away. Sinara, a crystalline being, made herself invisible and walked through walls. Quentol, who controlled gravity, made everyone in the room float in the air. Through all of this, Marcus sat quietly in his chair, watching each demonstration with the same calm attention he always showed. He did not seem impressed or frightened by their displays of power. "Well, human?" General Krextar demanded, his metal face twisted with smugness. "Show us what amazing abilities your species possesses." Marcus stood up slowly. The room fell silent, waiting to see what this ordinary creature would do. "I cannot walk through walls," Marcus said simply. "I cannot read minds or control gravity. I cannot calculate the movement of stars." He looked around the room at each advisor. "But I can ask questions that help solve problems." The advisors burst into laughter. Even some of the guards smiled behind their helmets. "Questions?" Krextar's metal body shook with amusement. "That is your great power? Asking questions?" "Yes," Marcus replied without embarrassment. "Questions like, why do you assume strength always comes from power? Why do you think the loudest voice has the best ideas? Why do you believe that being different makes someone worthless?" The laughter stopped. Something in Marcus's tone had changed, though none of them could identify what. Queen Zixara, who had watched this entire display in silence, leaned forward on her throne. "Continue." "Marcus, your advisors are all very powerful," Marcus said, "but power can sometimes make you blind to simple solutions. When you can walk through walls, you might forget to check if the door is unlocked. When you can read minds, you might stop listening to what people actually say. When you can destroy cities, you might think every problem needs force to solve it." The room was completely quiet now. Even the Queen's 4 eyes were focused entirely on Marcus. "I am weak," Marcus continued, "so I have to think carefully about every problem. I have to look for solutions that do not require great power. Sometimes those solutions work better than force." General Krextar's metal face darkened with anger. "Your Majesty, this human dares to suggest that weakness is better than strength. This is insulting to everyone who serves you." But Queen Zixara was studying Marcus with new interest. There was something in his words that felt important, though she could not yet understand what. "Marcus," she said slowly, "you speak as if you have experience with solving problems that powerful beings cannot solve." For just a moment, something flickered in Marcus's eyes. It was so quick that only the Queen noticed it. "Experience is a good teacher," Marcus said carefully, "even for humans." The Queen felt a strange sensation, as if she was missing something important. This human continued to surprise her with his insights. But how could someone from such a primitive world understand complex problems better than her trained advisors? "General Krextar," she said finally, "your demonstration was impressive as always. But remember that I chose each of you for different reasons. Marcus serves a different purpose." Krextar bowed stiffly, clearly unsatisfied with this answer. As the meeting ended and the advisors filed out, Queen Zixara noticed that Marcus was the last to leave. He paused at the door and looked back at her. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "sometimes the most valuable thing is not what someone can do, but what they choose not to do." Then he was gone, leaving the Queen alone with her thoughts. She had ruled an empire for 2 centuries, surrounded by the most powerful beings in the galaxy. So why did the words of one powerless human feel more important than all their displays of strength? That night, Queen Zixara stood on her balcony, looking out at the stars that marked the borders of her empire. Somewhere among those lights, she knew there were threats and challenges that even her powerful advisors might not be able to handle. For the first time in years, she found herself hoping that her instincts about the quiet human had been correct. The emergency alarm echoed through the palace like the cry of a dying beast. Queen Zixara rushed to the war room, her 4 eyes already scanning the massive display screens that showed her empire's territories. Red warning lights flashed across the galaxy map, all centered on the outer rim where her newest battle fleet was stationed. General Krextar was already there, his metal body flickering between solid and liquid as stress affected his form. Admiral Vector, a 6-armed insectoid being, clicked his mandibles rapidly while reviewing the incoming reports. "What happened?" the Queen demanded. "We lost contact with Battle Group 7 3 hours ago," Krextar reported, his voice tight with worry. Before their signals went dark, they transmitted this. The main screen showed the final moments of the battleship Conqueror. Strange enemy vessels appeared around it like ghosts, their forms shifting and blurring as if they existed in multiple places at once. The Nexilian ship's weapons fired constantly, but every blast passed harmlessly through the enemy vessels, as if they were made of smoke. Then the enemy ships became solid for just a moment. Beams of unknown energy struck the Conqueror, and it exploded in a brilliant flash of light. "The entire battle group is gone," Admiral Vector reported, his insect voice clicking with distress. 60 ships, 30,000 crew members, and we never even hit one enemy vessel." Queen Zixara felt cold fear creep up her spine. In 200 years of rule, she had never seen anything like this. Her ships had the best shields and weapons in the galaxy. How could they be destroyed so easily? "Who are these enemies?" she asked. "We do not know." Morden's gaseous form swirled with agitation. "They appeared from empty space with no warning. Our sensors detected them only when they started attacking. Their technology allows them to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously." More reports came in throughout the morning. 2 more battle groups had been found and destroyed. The enemy vessels moved through space like living shadows, impossible to target, impossible to stop. "We need to evacuate the rim worlds," Admiral Vector suggested. "Pull our remaining fleets back to more defensible positions." "No." General Krextar's metal form turned dark red with anger. "We cannot show weakness. Send the entire 3rd Fleet to destroy these invaders." "With what weapons?" Morden demanded. "Everything we fire passes through them like they are not really there." The argument grew louder as more advisors arrived. Beltar suggested using psychic attacks to confuse the enemy pilots. Sinara proposed creating massive crystal barriers to block their movement. Quental wanted to use gravity wells to trap them in normal space. Through all of this, Marcus sat quietly in his usual chair, studying the battle recordings on his tablet. The Queen noticed that while everyone else was panicking or arguing, the human was taking notes with calm focus. "The problem is dimensional phasing," Sinara was saying, her crystal body flashing with frustrated light. "They can move between dimensions at will, but our weapons can only function in normal space." "Then we need weapons that work in multiple dimensions," Beltar suggested. "Impossible," Mordun declared. "The energy requirements would be astronomical. Even if we could build such weapons, they would drain our entire fleet's power in minutes." "Your Majesty," Marcus said quietly. The arguing stopped. Everyone turned to look at the human, surprised that he had spoken. "Yes, Marcus, I may have an idea, but it sounds impossible." General Krextar's laugh was like grinding metal. "Of course it sounds impossible. You understand nothing about dimensional physics." But Queen Zixara held up one hand for silence. Marcus's simple ideas had worked before. "Tell me your thought." Marcus stood up and walked to the main display screen. He pointed at the enemy ships in the recording. "You are trying to hit them while they are phasing between dimensions. But what if you force them to choose only one dimension?" The room fell silent. Morden's gaseous form stopped swirling. "Explain," the Queen ordered. "Your ships have dimensional shields to protect them from phase attacks, correct?" Marcus asked. "Yes," Admiral Vector clicked. "Standard equipment on all our vessels." "What if you reverse those shields? Instead of keeping phase attacks out, you could create a field that forces everything inside to exist in only one dimension." The advisors stared at him in shock. Sinara's crystal body went completely dark, which meant she was thinking very hard. That is theoretically possible," she said slowly, "but the calculations would be incredibly complex. We would need to modify every shield generator in the fleet. It cannot work, General Krextar declared. This human knows nothing about our technology. How could he understand dimensional physics better than our best scientists? But Morden was already bringing up equations on the display screens. Mathematical symbols filled the air as he worked through Marcus's suggestion. Wait, the gas being said, his voice filled with growing excitement. The human is correct. If we reverse the polarity of the dimensional barriers and expand the field radius, we could create reality anchors that lock everything within range into normal space. How big would the field be? The Queen asked. Marcus walked over to Morden's calculations. He studied them for a moment, then pointed to several symbols. You made an error here, he said quietly. And here. The field should be much larger than you calculated. Morden's form flashed with anger. I do not make mathematical errors, human. But when he checked Marcus's corrections, his angry color faded to surprised blue. The human is right, he admitted reluctantly. With these corrections, each ship could generate a reality anchor field covering several cubic kilometers. That would be enough to trap multiple enemy vessels, Admiral Vector realized, his mandibles clicking with excitement. But how does this human understand our mathematics? Feltar demanded, his tentacles writhing with suspicion. These equations should be impossible for his primitive brain to comprehend. For a moment, Marcus was very still. The Queen saw something flicker in his eyes again, the same strange look she had noticed before. Mathematics is universal, Marcus said carefully. The same principles work everywhere, even on Earth. It was not really an answer, but before anyone could press him further, new alarms began ringing. Your Majesty, a communication officer called out. The enemy has appeared near the mining colonies. 4 battle groups under attack. No time for more discussion, the Queen decided. Admiral Vector, implement Marcus's plan immediately. Modify the shield generators on every ship in the 5th Fleet. But Your Majesty, General Krextar protested, we are trusting our entire defense to the untested idea of a primitive human. Queen Zixara looked at Marcus, who was already studying the new battle reports with the same calm attention. He gave everything else. Marcus, she said, are you certain this will work? He looked up at her, and for just a moment she saw something in his dark eyes that made her feel very small. It was gone so quickly she almost thought she had imagined it. It will work, he said simply. 6 hours later, the modified 5th Fleet engaged the mysterious enemy near the Tertian mining system. The Queen and her advisors watched on the communication screens as Admiral Vector's ships activated their reverse-dimensional shields. The enemy vessels, which had been flickering between dimensions like ghosts, suddenly became solid and real. For the first time since the attacks began, Nexilian weapons found their targets. The battle was over in 20 minutes. All enemy ships were destroyed. In the war room, everyone stared at the victory reports in stunned silence. Finally, General Krextar spoke. How did you know it would work? He asked Marcus. The human was quiet for a long moment. When he answered, his voice was very soft. Sometimes when you are weak, you learn to see solutions that the strong miss. But Queen Zixara was studying Marcus with new eyes. There was something about the way he had corrected Morden's mathematics. Something about the confidence in his voice when he said the plan would work. How did a human from a primitive world understand dimensional physics better than her greatest scientists? As the celebration continued around them, the Queen made a decision. Tonight she would have a private conversation with Marcus Chen. It was time to learn the truth about her mysterious human advisor. Queen Zixara dismissed her guards and sealed the doors to her private chamber. The room was smaller than the throne room, filled with comfortable furniture and warm lighting. She sat across from Marcus, studying his calm face in the gentle glow of the crystal lamps. We are alone now, she said quietly. No advisors, no guards, no recording devices. Just you and me. Marcus nodded but said nothing. He sat with his hands folded in his lap, waiting patiently for her to speak. I have ruled this empire for over 2 centuries, the Queen continued. In that time I have met thousands of different species. I have seen creatures with incredible powers and others with brilliant minds. But I have never met anyone quite like you. What do you mean, Your Majesty? You understand things you should not be able to understand. You solve problems that confuse my best scientists. You corrected mathematical equations that took Mordoun years to develop. The Queen leaned forward, her 4 eyes fixed on Marcus's face. How is this possible for a human from a primitive world? Marcus was quiet for a long time. The Queen could see him thinking, as if he was deciding something very important. "What do you want to know?" he asked finally. "The truth. All of it." Marcus stood up and walked to the window that looked out over the palace gardens. The Queen could see his reflection in the glass, and something about his expression had changed. He looked older somehow and very tired. "The truth is something that will change everything you believe about the universe," he said softly. "Are you certain you want to hear it?" Yes, Marcus turned around to face her. When he spoke again, his voice was different. The careful politeness was gone, replaced by something ancient and sad. "Humans are not a primitive species, Your Majesty. We never were." Queen Zixara felt her blood turn cold. "What do you mean?" "Earth is not our homeworld. It is a testing ground, created by human civilization millions of years ago. Every human born there undergoes something we call the limitation. We deliberately suppress our true abilities and force ourselves to live as if we were weak and primitive." The Queen stared at him in shock. "That is impossible, is it?" Marcus asked. "You have wondered how I could understand your technology so easily, how I could solve problems that your advisors could not, how I could correct mathematics that should be beyond my species' knowledge." He walked closer to her. "The answer is simple. I am not limited by the constraints you think define humanity. But why would your people do such a thing? Why would you make yourselves weak on purpose?" Marcus sat down again, but now he seemed different. The quiet, humble advisor was gone. In his place sat someone who felt much older and more dangerous than he appeared. "Power without wisdom is the path to destruction," he said. "Our ancestors learned this lesson the hard way. When humans first achieved technological transcendence, we nearly destroyed ourselves and several other civilizations. We were strong, but we were not wise." The Queen's mind raced as she tried to understand what Marcus was telling her. "So, you limit yourselves to learn wisdom?" "Exactly. Every human who wishes to reclaim their full abilities must first prove they can use power responsibly. They must live multiple lifetimes under artificial limitations, learning to solve problems through intelligence and creativity rather than brute force." "And you have done this?" Marcus smiled, and it was not the smile of a humble advisor. It was the smile of someone who had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. "I have lived 47 lifetimes on Earth. I have been a farmer, a teacher, a scientist, a soldier, a parent. In each life, I faced the challenges that humans face when they have no special powers. I learned to find solutions through thought rather than force." Queen Zixara stood up abruptly, her legs shaking. "How old are you?" "By your measure of time?" "Approximately 8,000 years. But I have existed in this universe much longer than that." The room spun around the Queen. She gripped the back of her chair to keep from falling. "If this is true, then why are you here? Why did you allow yourself to be captured?" "I was not captured," Marcus said gently. "I chose to come here. I have been studying your empire for the past 60 years, observing your expansion, your treatment of conquered species, your methods of rule." "Studying us? For what purpose?" Marcus stood up and walked to the center of the room. As the Queen watched in growing amazement, the air around him began to shimmer. "To determine if your people are ready to join the greater galactic community." "What greater community?" "The alliance of mature civilizations that actually control this galaxy. Your empire, impressive as it seems to you, occupies a very small portion of local space. There are dozens of civilizations far more advanced than yours, all working together to maintain peace and order." The Queen sank back into her chair. "You are saying we are nothing, that our great empire is meaningless?" "Not meaningless," Marcus corrected, "but young, inexperienced, still learning what it means to be truly civilized." "And what have you concluded from your study of us?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. The shimmer around him grew brighter, and the Queen could feel power radiating from him like heat from a star. "Your empire has potential," he said finally. "You conquer through force, but you are not needlessly cruel. You collect alien species, but you do not exterminate them. Most importantly, you chose to treat a seemingly powerless prisoner with respect rather than contempt." "You mean my decision to make you an advisor?" "That decision was a test, Your Majesty, and you passed it." The Queen's 4 eyes widened with understanding. "The enemy ships, the attack on our fleets, that was not a real threat, was it?" Marcus shook his head. "It was a final examination. How would your empire respond to a superior enemy? Would you resort to desperate cruelty? Or would you listen to wisdom even when it came from an unexpected source?" So when I trusted your plan, you proved that your people can learn and grow, that you value intelligence over pride, that you can accept help from those you consider inferior. The power radiating from Marcus grew stronger. The Queen could now see energy flowing around him like visible wind. When he spoke again, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. I am not Marcus Chen, a captured human engineer. I am Observer Prime Unit 7739, sent by the Human Collective to evaluate the Nexilian Empire for potential membership in the Galactic Alliance. Queen Zixara felt as if the universe was reshaping itself around her. Everything she thought she knew was wrong. Her mighty empire was just a small regional power. The human she had chosen as an advisor was actually a being with power beyond her imagination. What happens now? She whispered. The energy around Marcus faded and he became the quiet, humble advisor again. But the Queen could still see the ancient wisdom in his eyes. Now you have a choice, he said softly. Your empire can continue on its current path, growing slowly until it reaches the natural limits of conquest-based expansion. Eventually you will stagnate and decline like so many others before you. Or you can accept guidance from the Human Collective. You can begin the long process of evolution from a conquest empire to a mature civilization. It will require abandoning many of your current methods. It will require learning to see strength in restraint and wisdom in cooperation. The Queen looked out the window at her vast palace, thinking of the millions of worlds under her rule, the billions of beings who called her their sovereign. And if I refuse? Marcus's expression became sad. Then I will report that the Nexilian Empire is not ready for advancement. You will continue to exist in your current territory, but you will never learn what lies beyond it. Your people will never know what they could have become. Queen Zixara closed her 4 eyes and thought about everything Marcus had told her. When she opened them again, she saw him watching her with patient understanding. The choice is mine alone, yes? But whatever you decide will affect the future of your entire civilization. The Queen stood up and walked to the window. Below her, the lights of the palace glittered like stars. Beyond that, she knew, lay an empire that had seemed vast and mighty just hours ago. Now it felt very small indeed. But perhaps, she thought, there was room to grow. Queen Zixara stood at the window for a long time, looking out at her empire while her mind struggled to understand the magnitude of what Marcus had revealed. When she finally turned around, she found him sitting patiently, waiting for her decision with the same calm attention he had always shown. Show me, she said quietly. Your Majesty, show me what humans really are. I need to understand what I am choosing between. Marcus studied her face carefully. Are you certain? Once you see the truth, you cannot return to ignorance. Your view of the universe will be forever changed. I have already lost my ignorance. Show me the rest. Marcus stood up and moved to the center of the room. The air around him began to shimmer again, but this time the effect was much stronger. The Queen watched in growing amazement as reality itself seemed to bend around the human. The walls of the chamber became transparent, showing not the palace corridor beyond, but the vast expanse of space. Stars wheeled overhead in patterns the Queen had never seen before. She gasped as she realized she was looking at the galaxy from an impossible perspective, as if the room had somehow moved beyond normal space. This is how my people see the universe, Marcus explained, his voice now carrying harmonics that resonated in dimensions the Queen could barely perceive. Not limited by single points of view, but understanding the connections between all things. The star map zoomed inward, showing the Queen's empire. But now she could see it was just a tiny cluster of lights in one small arm of the galaxy. Surrounding it were vast networks of stars connected by streams of energy that pulsed with coordinated patterns. Each of those energy streams represents a mature civilization. Marcus said, they work together, sharing knowledge and resources, protecting younger species, maintaining the balance that keeps this galaxy peaceful and prosperous. The Queen saw transportation networks that could move ships instantly across thousands of light years. She saw planets being carefully transformed to support new forms of life. She saw ancient beings of pure energy, working alongside mechanical intelligences and organic creatures she could not even identify. How many civilizations? She whispered. In this galaxy alone, over 3,000 that have achieved full technological transcendence. Millions more at various stages of development. The display zoomed out further, showing neighboring galaxies, and this is just our local cluster. Queen Zixara felt herself trembling as the true scope of the universe revealed itself to her. Her mighty empire, which she had thought represented the height of galactic power, was less than a single cell in a vast living organism. "We are nothing," she said, her voice hollow with shock. "You are everything," Marcus corrected gently. The display faded, returning the room to normal. "Every mature civilization began exactly where yours is now. Young, aggressive, convinced of their own superiority. The question is not whether you are important, but whether you can grow beyond your current limitations." The Queen sank into her chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she had learned. "What would joining this alliance require of us?" Marcus sat down across from her, his expression compassionate but serious. "First, you would need to abandon conquest as a method of expansion. No more forced subjugation of primitive worlds. Instead, you would offer guidance and protection to developing species, helping them grow at their own pace." The Queen thought of her vast military fleets, her armies that had conquered dozens of worlds. "My generals will not accept this easily. Change is never easy, but consider this. How much energy does your empire spend on maintaining control through force? How many resources are wasted on putting down rebellions and defending against counterattacks? Cooperation is far more efficient than conquest. What else? You would need to begin sharing your technology with the species you have conquered, rather than keeping them dependent on your superior power. True strength comes from lifting others up, not keeping them down." This idea shocked the Queen even more than the first. "But if we make them our equals, why would they remain part of our empire?" Marcus smiled. "Perhaps they would not. Perhaps instead of subjects you would have allies. Instead of an empire built on fear, you would have a confederation built on mutual benefit." The Queen tried to imagine such a thing. Her advisors would think she had gone insane. "You said there would be guidance from your people. What would that involve?" "Human observers would work with your government, helping you transition from your current methods to more sustainable ones. We would share some of our technology, carefully and gradually. Most importantly, we would help your people learn to see strength in restraint. And if some of my subjects rebel against these changes, if some of my advisors refuse to accept them," Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Change creates conflict. Some will resist, preferring the old ways. But those who embrace growth will discover capabilities they never knew they possessed." The Queen stood up and began pacing around the room. "This is an enormous risk. I could lose everything I have built, or you could gain everything you never imagined possible." She stopped pacing and looked directly at Marcus. "What do you think I should choose?" "I cannot make that decision for you, but I will tell you this. In 8,000 years of observing civilizations, I have seen many empires choose to remain as they were. They achieved temporary stability, but they also achieved permanent limitation. They never learned what they could have become. And those who chose change? Some failed. The transition was too difficult and their societies collapsed. But others," Marcus gestured toward the window, where the Queen could still imagine the vast network of allied civilizations he had shown her. "Others became more than they ever dreamed possible." Queen Zixara walked to her private desk and sat down. She activated the communication system that could reach every world in her empire. "What are you doing?" Marcus asked. "Making a choice." The Queen's 4 hands moved over the controls as she opened channels to every planetary governor, every military commander, every important advisor in her realm. Their faces appeared on screens around the room, confused and concerned by this unprecedented empire-wide communication. "Citizens and subjects of the Nexilian Empire," the Queen began, her voice carrying across thousands of star systems. "Today I learned something that will change the future of our civilization forever." She told them everything. About Marcus's true identity, about the vast galactic community beyond their borders, about the choice that lay before them. She watched as shock, disbelief, and wonder played across thousands of alien faces. "I know this information is difficult to accept," she continued. "I know many of you will think I have been deceived or have lost my reason, but I have seen the proof with my own eyes." General Krextar's metal face appeared on one of the screens, his form flickering with agitation. "Your Majesty, this is impossible!" "This human has somehow influenced your mind. Then let him prove it," the Queen said calmly. She turned to Marcus. "Show them what you showed me." Marcus stood up and the same shimmer of power surrounded him. But this time, He projected the display through the communication network, letting every being in the Empire see the true scope of the galaxy. The Queen watched as thousands of her subjects stared in amazement at the vast networks of allied civilizations. The silence that followed lasted for several minutes. Finally, Morden's gaseous form swirled nervously on one screen. If this is real, if we truly are so small in comparison to these other civilizations, then we have been living in ignorance. Willful ignorance, Marcus corrected. Your species has the intelligence and potential to join this community. The question is whether you have the wisdom to abandon the methods that brought you this far in favor of the methods that will take you further. Admiral Vector's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. What guarantee do we have that these other civilizations will accept us? That they will not simply conquer us as we have conquered others? You have my word, Marcus said simply. And more than that, you have proof. I have lived among you for months with power enough to destroy your entire empire. I have done nothing but offer guidance and help you grow stronger. The Queen looked around at all the faces on her screens. She could see fear, wonder, confusion, and hope in equal measure. I am not commanding you to accept this change, she announced. I am asking you to consider it. To think about what kind of civilization you want to be. Do we remain conquerors forever limited by our own aggression, or do we become something greater? Over the following hours, the debates raged across the Empire. Some worlds immediately embraced the idea of joining the galactic community. Others rejected it completely, preferring the certainty of their current existence. Most fell somewhere in between, cautiously interested but deeply concerned about the risks. As the Queen listened to the discussions, she realized that this itself was a sign of growth. For the first time in her empire's history, major decisions were being debated openly rather than imposed from above. Whatever we choose, she said finally, we will choose it together, as a civilization ready to take responsibility for its own future. Marcus, who had remained silent during most of the debates, stepped forward. Your Majesty, your people have already passed the most important test. You are discussing change rather than rejecting it automatically.